Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends. Now let's begin our Dhamma discussion. Today, my friends, we will learn in our Mindfulness in Buddha's Way session. We will learn about the mind, and we are going to listen to one teaching by our Supreme Buddha that Buddha taught about our mind. So once Buddha taught, Bandhanam chapalam chittam durakkan dunnivarayam ujum karoti medhave usukarova tejanam. So he taught this verse in a certain set of verses we called Dhammapada. So in the Dhammapada, Buddha teach about the mind in this way. So let's see its translation. Buddha say the mind is wavering and unsteady, difficult to guard, hard to restrain. The wise one sets it straight as a fletcher straightens the arrow's shaft. So this is the direct meaning of that verses that Buddha taught. Now, Buddha say a few qualities of our mind. The mind is wavering, which means the nature of our mind is cannot rely on a specific object, a certain idea, so it's wavering. It cannot go to a straight position. It always wavering. It wanders to different ideas. And the mind is unsteady, difficult to guard, hard to restrain. But the wise one sets it straight. He say it is like as a fletcher straightens the arrow's shaft. Now, my friends, have you seen the fletcher? So this is the fletcher, which means the person who straightens the arrows. So you know in Buddha's time, so they use these arrows. So when they engage with wars or battles with others, so they used these arrows. So there is a man called the fetcher. So his duty, his job is to straighten the arrows. So it is not a easy thing, which means it takes time. So the fetcher takes the arrow, and mostly this shaft of the arrow is made out of sometimes iron, sometimes made out of wood. So Buddha say he removes all the unnecessary, like excessive part from the shaft of the arrow to be able to straighten it. So he keep doing this again and again. So it takes his patience, it takes his dedication, and he need to straight this arrow. So that way, they can use the arrow to shoot and pierce into the target. So it should be as more as light and straight as possible to use the arrow. So the Fletcher keeps straightening this by the support of his skills. Now the Buddha say, just as the Fletcher, the wise person sets the mind straight. In other words, that person still the mind, the wise person. But before teaching that two lines, Buddha say the mind is wavering and unsteady, difficult to guard and hard to restrain. You know, our mind has the nature of that unable to set into a exact topic, is always going off with the topic. It's go and latch into a different set of ideas. Let's say, for an example, let's say I'm reading a book. So when I'm reading a book, so sometimes mind say, why don't you go for a walk? So, well, I will go on a walk, and then the mind would say, why don't you watch television? Or maybe, why don't you meditate? So we can't always rely on a specific thing. The mind is wavering. When it comes to the spiritual life, so our mind tells us go and meditate. But in the same time, the mind asks for the wandering, for the distractions. Why don't you pause your meditation? So it is very wavering. And because of that, the mind become very unsteady, just as the ripples in the ocean. So mind is always unsteady. Buddha say, because of that, it is really difficult to guard the mind because of it is wavering and hard to restrain. We are very difficult to restrain the mind. Now, there in the teaching, in these verses, in the Dhammapada, Buddha give four special points to for worth paying our attention. So the first one, Buddha say, it's pandanam, which means wavering, chapalam, which means unsteady, difficult to guard, durakkam, and hard to restrain, dunnivarem. Now, let's say we are meditating on our breathing. So we tend to feel this wandering of the mind. So usually when we keep focusing our mind into the in and out breath, we also experience the wandering of the mind. Now, Buddha say you should understand this wandering of the mind. Usually, if our mind were to wander, we fall into sadness. We think my mind is not concentrating, my mind is not stilling, I can't meditate. So Buddha said not to think like that, but to gain some knowledge about your meditation. Let's say from one hand, you are keep focusing to your breath. From the other hand, you see your mind is wandering. Now, Buddha say, other than being sad, try to get the knowledge of the mind. Oh, this is wavering. This mind is unsteady. And that understanding in Buddhism is called situational awareness or sampajana. In other translations, sometimes we find the term clear comprehension for the sampajana. So sampajana means being aware with the situation. You become aware with every changes in your mind while you are focusing your attention to your breath. So we should know the true nature of the mind, that it is wavering. It is not rely in one theme, one idea, and it is called being aware of the situation or sampajana. So you should not be sad about your wandering mind. Instead, you should try to understand the change of your mind. Buddha say, itiha tattva sampajano hoti. In this way, they are aware of the situation. For an example, let's say you are sweeping the floor. So maybe you are trying to meditate on your movements of the body. You might try to focus your attention to your movements in your body. But in the same time, when you are sweeping, you have a kind of awareness about the situation, not to bump into anything, not to bump into anyone, not to hit anywhere while you are doing that task. You might do that task by focusing your attention to your movements, and at the same time you don't want to hit anywhere, or you don't want to bump into anything. So that is your situational awareness. This is called the sampajana. And that is where you can get some knowledge about your meditation. You will be able to see the impermanence of your movements when it comes to the postural meditation. But when we are doing our breathing meditation, when we keep focusing to the breath, in the same time, we are trying to get the knowledge of the mind with the support of situational awareness. So whenever our mind wanders, we try to see why it wanders. What is the nature of this mind? So that is why even we already know this mind is wavering. It is hard to protect. It is unsteady. But Buddha still teach that because to help us to develop the awareness of the situation. Please keep this in your memory because this is very important and crucial point in the establishing of the mindfulness. So this is in Buddha's language is called sampajana. Buddha teaches us to develop situational awareness whenever mind wanders. That way we can gain knowledge for the future progress in the meditation. So you will aware about the mind that it is wavering and unsteady, difficult to guard and restrain. And this is your knowledge about the mind. So you develop that knowledge of the mind. This is where that we can improve our meditation if we are able to develop that situational awareness. Then you won't give up if you know that. If you really understand the nature of your mind, you stand up from your seat with a fresh developed knowledge. So you will be a wise meditator. So that's why Buddha say the wise person straightens the mind whenever the mind is wavering, whenever the mind is unsteady. So they are developing the situational awareness. So my dear friends, to understand this more, let's go on to some verses from a enlightened Bhante. So this Bhante is called Arahant Thalaputta. So before he was being a monk, he was in his also life. So he's thinking about this way. He's thinking this way. He think, I'm here really thinking, when indeed shall I go into a thick forest filled with beautiful waterfalls and live there along with a mind free from craving? When indeed shall I fulfill these wishes? So after he listened to the Dhamma, so he was thinking for himself, when I will fulfill these wishes, that going to a secluded place, going to a forest and close to a waterfall and doing meditation, how when I will remove the craving from my mind. He imagines like this, like a sage wearing a torn robe. When shall I wear a robe? When shall I live with a mind free of self-identity and craving? Having removed greed, hatred, and delusion from this mind, when shall I live peacefully in a forest? Now he thinks craving is the producer of fear, bringer of pain, twining around this entire life. So having taken a sharp sword made of wisdom, when shall I cut the creeper of craving into pieces? When indeed shall I fulfill these wishes? So, as we can see, my friends, now right after we listening to the Dhamma, so the mind become overjoyed and brings us all the beautiful thoughts and saying us when you will meditate, when you go to meditation, when you will give up this craving and when you attain the enlightenment. The great seer, the Supreme Buddha, realized these Four Noble Truths. So, with a still mind, developed wisdom and mindfulness, when shall I realize these Four Noble Truths that are very hard to realize? When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? Now he think there is a lion throne called serene and insight meditations. There are swords of enlightened ones made of wisdom, of fiery might. So having seated on that lion's throne, holding those swords, when shall I aggressively fight against the army of Mara? When indeed shall I fulfill these wishes? Like a king elephant separated from the herd, when shall I meditate, separated from the desire for all the objects that appear to be attractive and connected with sensual pleasures? When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? I really want to achieve Nibbana, undisturbed by laziness, hunger, thirst, wind, heat, insects, and snakes. When shall I live in a mountain cave? When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? So, this is the imagination of the mind. So, the mind is asking from this Bhante that when you will meditate. So, the Bhante was so happy because still he was in his lay life, so he didn't enter to the monk life, but still he was thinking about these beautiful thoughts. Well, when I will go and when I will meditate. I really like to develop jhana. So by wisdom based on that one-pointedness of mind, when I shall see these innumerable sights, sounds, smell, taste, touches, thoughts as though they were blazing fire. When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? So he is thinking when I will see this object of the senses as impermanent, when I will develop my concentration, one-pointedness of my mind, when I shall live without worrying about people talking harshly to me, when I shall live without being overjoyed when people praise me, when indeed shall I fulfill these wishes? In the thick forest among mountains, the peacocks cry out. When shall I wake up to that cry and meditate, wishing for Nibbana? When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? Now he see a beautiful simile like this. So he imagines about a simile. When shall I live happily, realizing the teachings of the Buddha, like a poor man stricken by a debt and after being repeatedly oppressed by rich men, has found a golden treasure? When indeed shall I fulfill this wish? So he see the Dhamma and the discipline is such a beautiful and very sacred thing. When I will protect this treasure and when I will follow this Dhamma. So this is the same attitude that usually that we also get when we start to meditate. The first time we listen to the Dhamma, so we all of a sudden think, okay, I should do this for myself. This Dhamma is very interesting. I should start to follow this. But this happened. Now let's see. The mind is wavering. Mind cannot focus into a exact idea. It's wavering. It does not always being in a one single idea, but it's wavering. It's unsteady. Now let's see what happened to this Bhante. How Bhante tamed his mind, let's see, after ordaining as a monk. So after the time goes by, he entered to the ordination and he became a monk. Now, not just as the life that when he was in his home life, just right after being a monk, the mind is not ready to follow the Dhamma. Now, mind is not following the Dhamma. Mind is not meditating. Now he asked from the mind, "Hey mind, didn't you beg me repeatedly for years to give up the home life?" Now he see the mind is deceiving him. Now he look at his mind and he address his mind like this. Hey mind, didn't you beg me repeatedly for years to give up the home life? How much did you beg me to become a monk? Now I have become a monk. Hey mind, why don't you meditate now? Now, let's say with ourselves, like when we listen to the Dhamma, so we decide, okay, now I should start to meditate, and we sit down to meditate. Is your mind meditating or is it wandering? What happened to the mind? What's going on with your mind? Is it going to so many different ideas while you're trying to meditate? Or is it still with your breath? Now this happened to the Bhante. So the Bhante see the mind is so much distracted. His mind is not enjoying the meditation. But it was the same mind asked him to give up the home life and to continue meditating. But mind is not ready to that task. Why? Because it's wavering. It's unsteady. It's difficult to guard. It's difficult to restrain. Now, this Bhante identifies his mind's unskillful side as negative to the practice. Now, that is called the sampajana. That is called the situational awareness. With the support of that situational awareness, he identifies the nature of the mind. He did not become sad when his mind was wandering. Then, the Bhante applies Dhamma to tame the mind. Now he had faith on the Dhamma because he have a strong, powerful trust on the Dhamma that this is the teaching that helped me to still my mind. Because he have a strong faith on the Dhamma, he used that Dhamma teachings to address his mind, his unskillful side of his mind. He engaged with the inner discussion through the Dhamma. Bhante established a powerful faith on the Dhamma and teach the wavering mind using the Dhamma. This is called taking refuge in Dhamma. So whenever, my friends, your mind is wandering, you should go for the refuge of the Dhamma, whatever the Buddha taught about the Dhamma, whatever Buddha taught. So you should try to pull all this knowledge of the Buddha to feed your mind, to teach your mind to understand about the meditation, to understand about your breathing meditation. Let's say now in some of the teachings, Buddha say the Dhamma knowledge is like the weapon store. So you use the weapons from the store and then you fight with your foes, with your enemies. So the same way you would pull the weapons from this Dhamma, so the Dhamma knowledge, and you try to contemplate that Dhamma during your meditation to be able to take your meditation to a higher level. So Buddha said this is like taking refuge from the Dhamma. Why? Because the Dhamma is not just a certain like set of rules or set of like reports, but there is something to take as a refuge when our mind is suffering. The more the faith we have on the Dhamma, so the more that we can neutralize the unskillful side of our mind. So we can let go the negative side of the mind. Now let's see how this Bhante is using the Dhamma to tame his mind. Now he asks from his mind, why don't you meditate now? Mind, you ask for me to be a monk and devote yourself to the practice, but now you don't following that Dhamma. You don't follow, now you don't meditating. Why don't you meditate now? Now, did this ever happen to you, my friends? So I just have a side question. So usually you go to the meditation retreat and sit down to meditate, but your mind is not meditating. It's not following your breath. But why? Why the same mind asks from you to meditate, but it's asking now to wandering. Now it takes you to a different thoughts and different ideas. Now he asks, hey mind, didn't you beg me to go to a forest and meditate sitting on a flat rock in the midst of a mountains where birds cry and waterfalls flow? You told me that you really loved it, didn't you? Now he asks from his unskillful side of his mind, didn't you told me that you really love meditation? Hey mind, it is because of your request that I became a monk, giving up all possessions and valuables, relatives, friends, and enjoyments. Now I have entered to the forest, but now why you don't make me happy, pushing me on the path to Nibbana? Hey mind, this mind doesn't belong to others, it is mine. Now I am ready for the battle against defilements, but why are you crying now? I have realized that everything is subject to destruction. That is why I renounce the household life, desiring the death-free state Nibbana. But now you are weeping, now you are crying. Now he is asking from his own mind, why are you crying now? Why you don't put me into the enlightenment? Why you take me to the higher stages of concentration? I know, he say, it is mine. The mind is mine, but why don't you treat me like this? Hey mind, do you know what the great physician, the best of men, supreme trainer of people, the speaker of good, the supreme Buddha said about this mind? Now he remember about the Dhamma because he have the faith on the Dhamma. He remember what the Buddha taught whenever his mind is changing and wavering. He see now the Buddha taught this and Buddha taught that about the mind. So because he has his faith on the teaching, he look out from that faith to the mind, and then he tried to compare the teachings with the mind. Now he say beautiful terms to praise the Buddha. He say, the great physician, the best of men, the supreme trainer of people, the speaker of good, the Buddha. Do you know, mind, what the Buddha said? This mind is very fickle. It is like a monkey always moving in the forest. It is very hard to restrain this mind, one who is not rid of lust. That is how I learned from the Buddha. But you, mind, you are bringing me all this mental magic, and you are blocking me, my nibbana, my enlightenment. This is where we can see the not self of the nature of our mind. Now, sometimes, like, we should not be confused with this idea, my friends. He is not blaming himself. Sometimes people blame themselves, if their meditation is not getting success. Sometimes they blame, oh, I can't do this. I can't do meditation. My mind is not concentrating, so I can't follow this path. So they hate sometimes themselves. Sometimes they hate the teachings or the teacher. Sometimes just as people criticizes them until they hate themselves. I can't meditate. It is not that kind of a blame, because we have so much listened to these things, what the people say, than the Dhamma. So we might judge that isn't he that blaming himself? But no, but he is contemplating the Dhamma to tame his mind. He has a strong trust in the Dhamma, and he turning that Dhamma towards the mind and try to cleanse the mind using the Dhamma. And that is the sampajana, that is the clear comprehension. Now he say, ordinary people are sunk in ignorance. They attach to these sensual pleasures that are attractive, sweet, and delightful. They seek existence repeatedly and wish only for pain. Taking them away from that good, this mind puts them in hell. The great forest resonates with cries of peacocks and herons. One is exposed to leopards and tigers. One will have to give up longing for life. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Hey mind, wasn't it you that urged me to become a monk? You asked me to contemplate the reality of the five aggregates, understand them as suffering, and abandon the desire towards them that generate suffering. Thus putting an end to suffering in this very life. Didn't you tell me, hey mind, wasn't it you that urged me to become a monk? You asked me to contemplate these conditioned things as impermanent. Hey mind, wasn't it you that urged me to become a monk? You asked me to become ugly with a shaven head. You asked me to take a bowl and join the begging monks as someone who was cursed by suffering in rebirth. You asked me to live in accordance with the instruction of the greatest seer, the greatest teacher, hey mind. Wasn't it you that urged me to become a monk? You asked me to restrain the mind. Now the mind asks us to restrain the mind. You ask me not to get attached to families and sensual pleasures while going on the alms round. You ask me to live like the moon on a full moon night with such a pureness. Hey mind, wasn't it you that urged me to become a monk? Hey mind, just like a person wishing for fruits, who having planted trees, wishes to cut down those trees. You push me into this impermanent, unstable rebirth, don't you? A man growing a tree for take the fruits, and now the man is wishing to cut that tree. The same way, aren't you mind, isn't, don't you mind going to put me into this rebirth? He asked, hey, formless mind, you travel far and wander alone, but after this, after what? After understanding the nature of the mind, I won't follow your commands again. Sensual pleasures are really painful, bitter, and very fearful. How he learned the sensual pleasures are really painful is by the Dhamma. He understood that sensual pleasures are very less enjoyment but much more suffering. But the mind is addicted to the sense pleasures. Now the Bhante say, I won't follow your commands again because I know the real nature. I know the bitterness, the frightening and painful nature of the pleasure of the senses. Certainly I wonder, pointing my face, Bhante says, certainly I wonder, pointing my face only to the direction of Nibbana, which means overcoming of all suffering. Now see how much confidence this Bhante in the Dhamma, in the Buddha, and in the Sangha. So that is the refuge to our mind. There's no any other refuge to the mind when it's wavering. Without developing and establishing a higher faith and trust on the Dhamma, it is impossible to train the mind because it is unwavering, it's wavering, and because it is unsteady. Hey mind, I didn't become a monk because of bad luck, nor from shamelessness towards begging for food, nor because of fickle mind, nor because of banishment, nor because of not having any other livelihood. But I have agreed that I won't go under your control ever again. That's why I became a monk. Hey mind, everywhere I went, I have followed your advice. Therefore, in many previous life, whenever I was born, I followed you. I didn't make you angry. You were born from me. You born from me. I didn't make you angry. I was always pleasing you. Whatever you teach me, whatever you give me, whatever you bring me. But you don't have any gratitude. He's asking about this unskillful mind, unskillful side of his mind. You don't have any gratitude. You were born from me, but you don't have any gratitude. That is why for a long time you dragged me through this painful journey of samsara. Hey mind, because of you, one time I became a Brahmin, another time a millionaire, another time a king, again a trader, again a servant, again a god. And because of you, I went to the Asura world. I went to the hell. I went to the animal realm. I went to the ghost world. Hey mind, you are trying to deceive me again and again. You try to show me illusionary, magical pictures time after time. You bring me beautiful, magical pictures time after time. You try to play with me as though a crazy man would. Hey mind, what have I done to you to deserve this pain? He asking from his mind. Through the Dhamma, he is addressing his mind. You are bringing me beautiful, magical pictures time after time. You are trying to play with me as a crazy man would. Hey mind, what have I done to you to deserve this pain? Hey mind, formerly you wandered where you liked, how you wished, and how you pleased. But today, I will tame this disobedient mind with the hook of wise consideration, the Dhamma, just as the hook holder tames a disobedient elephant. My great teacher showed me the reality of this world to be impermanent, unstable, and futile. See his confidence in his Dhamma. Hey mind, make me enter the path, the great victor, the Buddha. Help me cross the great flood of samsara, which is very hard to cross. Hey mind, now the old mind is not here. Now you can control me as you wish. I am a monk in the great serious path. No one can harm those who are like me. Hey mind, while boars and deer walk around this beautiful forest with slopes and hills, the whole forest has been sprinkled with fresh water by the rain. Now you have entered a cave in this beautiful forest. Now be happy. The peacocks have beautiful blue necks, beautiful crests, beautiful tail feathers, and beautiful wings. When the sky thunders, those peacocks scream, "Hey mind, now you are meditating in this cave. Be happy about it." Yes, I tame you like a king, commands a servant. Whatever has been obtained to maintain this life is enough for me. He's saying, be content. Everything is enough for you to meditate. I am not lazy, therefore I will make you fit for Nibbana. Mind, you have been tamed very well, like a superior elephant was tamed, like someone who tames a horse. I also was able to travel on this blissful way to Nibbana. That path to Nibbana was only ever followed by great beings who guarded their mind. Hey mind, I have bound you to the meditation object as one chains a king elephant to a post. Since I established mindfulness well, I was able to guard and control the mind. With that well-developed mind, I escaped from all existence. So while the Bhante was applying the teachings in that way, by establishing his faith and taking the refuge of the Dhamma and addressing the mind with the support of situational awareness, he was able to remove all the fetters from his mind. He escaped from all existence. He escaped from all the rebirth, all the suffering. So he was fortunate to understand the Four Noble Truths and still his mind. He said, "Hey mind, like a deer roaming freely in this delightful mountain decorated in clouds, I live in this forest freely, undisturbed by anything." So he won the battle. He won the inner war. Hey mind, undoubtedly you have been defeated. Now that defeat is the defeat from all the unskillful things. He won the victory of skillful things. He removed all the unskillful things forever. And what he has in his mind is enormous loving kindness, limitless compassion, and renunciation, detachment, and complete satisfaction and complete contentment. So he said, mind, undoubtedly, you have been defeated. I won. So the skillful side of the mind was won. And he was completely purified his mind and he cleansed his mind. And that is called the liberation. But and he get there by continuously applying the teachings to the mind. He said a very beautiful praise, which is very important for all of us. So this is what the Bhante say. Hey mind, if any men or women get caught up in your desire, go under your control, and delight in sensual pleasures, they all will sink into ignorance and go under the Mara's control. All those who wish to be reborn again and again, they are all your slaves. So until we liberate from the journey of samsara, we have to follow this mind. But the day that we start to practice the Dhamma is the day that we will go against the stream of suffering. You know, Buddha said the disciple is like the person who is swimming against the stream. Buddha say that is the disciple. The noble disciple is like a person who is not just like going with the flow of the stream. Whatever comes to the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, keep following that is the way of the ordinary life, is the way of the common worldling. So whoever fall into that stream of sense pleasures go through the stream. It's very massive and powerful stream. But the disciple is the person who is trying to swim against the stream. He's trying to go the opposite direction. And that's how one is liberated from the journey of samsara. Now, this Bhante say, all those who wish to be reborn and again, they are all your slaves. So one has to be gain any kind of a form in different births. But when it comes to the Nibbana, it's overcoming of all suffering. So the Bhante say, the mind should be liberated from all these unskillful things. So that is called the perfect purity of the mind. So I hope, my friends, you get some idea of the sampajana and the situational awareness, and also about the wavering nature of the mind. And I think you also get the idea about this taming of the mind. So, my friends, whenever our mind wanders, so we can start to do a discussion with our mind, and not just to follow the mind, but to teach the mind with the Dhamma. So then it will help us to overcome from suffering. So, my friends, I hope this teaching will help every one of us. May we all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths and be free from suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.